Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. This is the lean-to build day 3. If you haven't seen day 1 and day 2, click back and look at that. We are on day 3. So we've got our posts in, we've got our hangers in, we've got our wall all taken off. We're ready for metal. And that's all in the first 2 videos. So if you haven't seen those, check back and check those out. Some things I didn't mention that I want to point out real quick. This post. So this post was rotted off. In fact, sorry for the dizziness, but it's right there. You can see how rotten the bottom was. It literally just snapped off. I cut it and it pulled right out. It's about 3 feet down, and we had to dig that all out, chip it all out, all the rottenness out. It only had concrete on 3 sides of the post. So we cleaned it out and used the old concrete that was there and then sandwiched in and busted some out and put it back in. But there's a big base underneath of it. So I was happy about that. So we used the old base, set the post in, and then concreted all the way around it. The reason it's rotten is because concrete was only on 3 sides. I don't even know how you do that, but they only put concrete on 3 sides, letting water get to one side. And essentially the concrete worked as a sponge. It just kept it cold or hot and allowed water to soak in around that post and caused rot over how many ever years this building is. I think it was built in '92. So it doesn't take very long to rot them off, especially when they're not treated. These were hewn sawmill beams from here on this farm. So we got that placed. You can see we've got it sandwiched it in here, and we're going to put boards all the way around that to encase that in. Pretty happy with how that turned out. The other thing, we had to pour concrete, which I mentioned in my last video, where the other 2 rotted posts are, and you can see we went and busted that out so concrete ran all the way down and out and around, sealing that in. I will also use Sikaflex on the finishing part of this, so I'll run Sikaflex, which is a concrete caulk, down around all of that, so it'll all fill in, no bugs can come in. And then of course this will have the metal and be seamed and then be rocked all the way up against it, so this will all be good. So that's where we're at right now. Our next thing was putting up our joist hangers. So I don't know how good you can see this. It's a chalk line. Basically what we did is we get where the first board is going to go. So we get our first rafter up, and we determine the height of the top and the bottom. So we go basically where we want to go. From the top of which you can kind of see faintly, that chalk line going across that board right there, there's about 5.5 inches. That's enough for the joist, the 2x4 that's going to hold the metal down, the new metal, and then the transition that will go up underneath there. You can see why, go back to the other videos, you'll see why I did that. But basically my joist, I have an upper and a lower line of my chalk line. Don't have to do that. That's just the way I choose to do it. And then we're going along and we're putting our joist hangers in. So this is the point we're at. We're gonna hang the first joist hanger. We're gonna get our 2x8 rafter up on the joist hanger to cut out our bird's mouth notch on both the joist hanger and here at the post. The first board will then become our guide. We'll use that as a stencil to mark out every other rafter, and then the rafter that we use as our stencil is actually the last rafter to be attached onto the building. So we want to use the same stencil over and over and over. Don't transpond them like that old telephone game you used to play in elementary school. So you want to use the first one over and over and over, and that's where we're at. So we're going to put this board up here. I'll show you how we mark it. Then I'll show you how to cut out the bird's mouth cut. And that is kind of the most delicate point. And then from there, we just keep marking them and rolling, and everything will be good from there on. All right, this video is a weird angle. So we've already cut our angle here to be flush with what we're going. This is a 12-degree angle based on the pitch. There's multiple ways to do this. You can do the math. You can have prints if you're using CAD. You can put an angle finder here and figure out what this angle is going to be, or you can trial and error it. Most of the time, a lean-to is anywhere from 11 to 13 degrees. If that's just to give you a starting point with your miter saw, these are actually 12-degree cuts. And so we've got our flush point, which is the start. But the problem is that the board touches here, but it's not touching back here. So we have to cut this notch out. That will go like that. Get my pencil here. So this notch will come up and over so that this sits down in my joist perfectly. So what I'm gonna do is right underneath here, I'm gonna make a mark. Okay? Then I'll take that back down to the ground and I'll show you how I'll cut that out. We're also gonna do that over there where Colt's at. So it will set down on that joist as well there. There'll be another bird's mouth there. And that's what will keep this in line, square and plumb as we go down through here. So we're dropping the bird's mouth here. It'll drop about, looks like about 1/4 inch. And it'll drop the same distance down there. So this angle won't change. The whole rafter is gonna drop down into a notch that will then go down on that joist down there. So I'll show you how I'm gonna make those. All right, so we've got our mark down here that we made up on the truss. We're gonna put another mark just up here. We're gonna take our speed square or our triangle, whatever you wanna call it, slide it down, and this is gonna be this is flat. So if this angle goes against your existing building and you go at 90, it's guaranteed that this will be flat in your joist hanger. So it's depending on how deep you want your bird's mouth, but it needs to be the same depth as the other side. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna come up here and make a 1/2 inch mark. Let's drop it down 1 inch actually. So I'm gonna use my tape measure. So I'm gonna come up that line and make a rough line 1 inch up. So a rough little tick mark there, that's 1 inch. Put my speed square on that line. This is now gonna be my cutout. So make my line there. Now I'm gonna take my exact same speed square, put it on here, and pivot it till it's at a 90 there. The other way you can do this is set this flat like this, and if the back is square and the front is marked square here, it'll square off like that. So as you come around and look at it, you'll see this is now your new cutout. We'll remeasure. My depth of my bird's mouth is exactly 1 inch. I don't like to hook. I'll use, to be more accurate, I'll use 1 to 2. So I got a 1 inch depth there. All right, so we've got our angle mark here in the middle towards the end of our board. This is now our overhang, and this is our rafter. This was right over top of our joist hanger that we had up on our post. So this is up. I double check this by using a pivot and an angle of the hip and valley numbers that are on your speed square. You don't have to do that if you make this mark straight. The way to do that is when it was sitting on our joist, I took my speed square and put it against it and drew my line. But we have our angle. This is the same 12-degree angle that's at the other end as our cut. I'm gonna measure up my 1 inch because that's the depth of our other one. Put my tick mark there. Okay, now I'm squaring from the other side. So I'm gonna put my square on here like this. Actually, I'll do it on the inside so you can see it. There is my new bird's mouth on this one. So this is the piece we're cutting out. This will hang over our rafter. It did not need to be that deep. You can see my rafter will stop somewhere about there as it hooks down on it. So you could cut this straight out and just let it slide on it, and the only place it's hooking is on the outside, or you could measure over 1.5 inches and cut up so that this slides down and locks on your rafter, which I think is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a little bit of a nicer cut. It takes longer to do this. And I was almost right on it. It takes longer to make this cut, so you can have just this notch that hangs over your rafter. Or you can cut it all the way out and it just sits on and locks on the end if you want to pull back. Either way, it's faster to do this. This is tighter. It's kind of whatever you want to do. All right, so our notches are out here and down there. Okay, so this is now my jig board. Everything is correct on this jig. I did forget to mention that when we had this up here and before we made this mark, we double and triple checked everything's plumb and square. That's the point that you would move your angles. Once you get this set, everything hooks into the existing building that should be square and level. It will determine if everything is level out here and plumb straight up and down. So if you don't have the jig right, it will throw everything else off. And so now everything is correct. We got this post, we made our jig, and we'll start working our way that way. Joists are all in, so we're using our hangers. I use 1.5 inch screws to put my hangers on, and I'm using 3-inch screws, or 2.5-inch screws are fine as well, for tying in, toenailing in to our joists, okay? I also put one, when the joist is being put up, I put one toenailed from the top down into my existing building. So there are 2 screws on the hangers and 1 screw at the point holding the joist against the building. We've got all of them in. You can see they're all in here. We'll climb up top. All of them are in, all of our joists are in. We've got in each hanger outside, there's 3 screws. At our post, we're putting 5. You can see I've doubled the joist at each post. Okay, so each post at each side, my stringers, my joists are tied into those on each side, kind of holding that. We can now take down our braces. When we were finding our jig board, when we were putting our joists up, we made sure everything was plumb, went down through, double checked everything is plumb. There is one more measurement, which is the post, if it falls side to side this way. So we'll add 45s up at an angle, and we'll double check that. It is still perfectly plumb both ways, so I'm not worried about it right now, but we'll put those 45s in to make sure that they don't shift back. This is the same principle if you had a 100-foot long lean-to. You would just do this at every post. We put our joists in at each post first, so we get our post correct, and then we go in and all the joists that fit in between each post are then put in. Once you get all your joists in, everything's nailed in, you're going to start putting your runners for your metal on top of the joists. So we are putting 2x4s, that is fine. 3 foot on center is kind of standard. I like to have one within 2 feet of the top. Give me some more strength at the building. So each stringer, each 2x4 gets 2 screws down into my joist. And then I will also, as you can see over there, I will also put one here from my 2x4 back into my band board on my building. So this is another secure point to my building. So all the joists are tied in, and then this top band board, top metal board is in as well. So my next joist down, my next band board down is 2 feet on center. And then from there, it'll go 3 feet on till the end. And we'll do the end cap. We have to cut the end of every board. I'll chalk a line, cut the end of every board, make my fascia board straight up and down vertically, and we'll put our fascia board on. That'll probably be another day. We've got rained out a little bit today. The kids have now gone to Christmas at Grandma's, and I'm not going, and I am here. And so getting this fixed up. If in case you're wondering, the posts that are sticking up that are left over, that will be chainsawed off, you know, redneck carpentry tool there, and it works very well. Just cut that off. You don't have to get it super tight because the 1.5-inch board of our 2x4 will hold up. So as long as I get fairly close without nicking my joists, I'm good. And we'll tie all these in. So today we're hoping to get the rest of these 2x4s in and maybe get metal up underneath of this, but the metal for the roof won't go in yet. Well, I'm getting rained out, so I think we're gonna call it quits for the day. We did get the inside of this wall studded out, ready for our door, and we've got our 2x4s all up except for the last run. So when we come back, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, but we'll probably work a little bit. I will trim these ends of these off, get them squared up, get our fascia board on, and the last 2x4 on is the last thing to do. But tomorrow, I'm not sure how much I'll get done. I have, you know, normal farm and feed and stuff to be prepared to try to not work on Christmas Day. So that's where we're at now. We are pretty close to metal. Another 2-3 hours and we'll be putting metal up, but I'm gonna let it go for the day. So appreciate you watching. Hope this video helps. Comment if you have questions you want me to touch on how to do something or how I'm doing something, if I'm missing a detail. But I hope this works. And like I say, the same principles that I'm talking about, it doesn't matter if it's 100-foot long, it doesn't matter what your span is, it's all the same. And so we just continue to do the same thing repetitive over and over. And I can probably show you some other things that we do here in our building when we're spanning further. I'll probably touch on that at the last video. Thanks for watching.